everyone, welcome to the 16th episode of the Genre Equality Podcast. I'm Hidzir.
I'm Hardy.
I'm Isa.
Welcome to our new show. It's a new month. We are just about 1 month removed from the summer season, which means all the big genre properties are going to be out next month. You know, your Game of Thrones, your Avengers Endgame, your Shazam, your Hellboys. But even before then, right, it's already starting to ramp up.
Yeah.
And part of me is glad that some of these movies are not going to get caught up in the summer traffic jam that is going to happen soon. So we can have like a bit more focus on, you know, Us, for example, which is a movie that deserves it. And a few others, you know, like on Netflix, you know, Love, Death and Robots is getting a lot of hype, stuff like that. But I guess we do have to start off with, you know, we are a genre podcast, so we got to start with the big superhero things.
So what was the big superhero thing?
There was one big superhero thing in March, as Marvel has tended to do over the last few years. Over in winter, late winter has been like a nice proving ground, box office wise. Last year, Black Panther made billions and billions and all the money in the world. And despite the divisiveness and all the, you know, the women hating trolls out there, Captain Marvel also did really well at the box office.
They did
well on the way to $1 billion. As of last weekend, they were at 750 million already.
Damn.
So I mean, it's
Wait, is that with global numbers? Or?
just global numbers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, domestically, it surpassed Batman vs Superman, which isn't hard to do these days. You know? I mean, I'm pretty sure Shazam will do that too as well.
But in among the ranks of Marvel movies,
Amongst the ranks, it's 7th overall in terms of domestic opening. Obviously, overall,
that's not too bad.
Yeah. It's surpassed, you know, most of the origin stories. You know, your Captain America vs Avengers, Thor's and stuff like that. Doctor Strange, for example. Obviously, Black Panther and Iron Man is of a different caliber. But sure. I mean, if you think about how long Thor as a franchise and Captain Marvel and Captain America, took to get to that premium status. You know, if you remember, First Avenger wasn't good, Thor: The Dark World wasn't good. So it took a few movies for it to ramp up, So the fact that Captain Marvel right out of the gate is already this solid and so financially successful bodes well for it as a franchise. But I guess let's talk about the movie in general. Let's not talk about, you know, the controversy surrounding it, because I don't want to give like oxygen to basically like kind of baseless things that have nothing to do with
they
the
took
story.
A comment by Brie Larson out of context, essentially.
Like from last year, right? Basically, right? Like if you actually look up what the comment was, it's not what is at all what it was made out to be, You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about it as a narrative, as a movie as a whole. Captain Marvel, I think, tries to do a lot.
They do.
It's an origin story with loads of, you know, MCU backstory, trying to fill in the history. It's supposed to set up Endgame. It's a 90s period piece. It's a buddy cop movie. It's a cosmic space adventure that's supposed to introduce the Skrulls and the Kree to the big screen. Although, I mean, we've seen a bit of the Kree, but this is our real definitive look at it, outside of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe. And also, it's supposed to be this piece of feminist filmmaking, obviously. And I'd say that it's modestly successful at most of it, though not as well as I'd hoped. Here are the good things. Let's start with the good things first. It's breezily enjoyable. It's very like fun. Brie Larson leads an insanely top-notch cast. I mean, they're all so good. The 90s spirit touches made me smile. You know, like the music, the gags about technology. You know, the modems and stuff.
The pages.
And here's some cool, and while others might say controversial, but I say cool, twists on the comic book lore. The thing is, it just lacks proper stakes, emotional resonance, and any sort of wow factor. As a standalone MCU movie goes, it ranks below, you know, gold standards like Iron Man and Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think it
better than First Avenger.
Far surpasses Captain America, First Avenger, Thor, or Doctor Strange even. Solid, but perhaps a bit too safe. What do you guys think?
It's no Wonder Woman lah.
No, it's not Wonder Woman.
But I never expected it to be. I feel this movie was suffering from more of a Endgame. We are waiting for Endgame. You know, so to fill in the gap, we have Captain Marvel. I just felt that this movie is just placed in a weird time lah. I mean, even though it's done well financially and all that, but just because it's filling in the holes for Endgame also.
Something that Black Panther didn't need to do for Infinity War.
Exactly. And so it was like you're right in it's trying to do a lot of things at one time. There was this whole rescuing mission with the, you know, spoiler alert, I guess, the Skrulls.
So small spoilers.
Then there was this whole, I mean, the whole idea between Kree and Skrull being explored, but not really delve deep into. You know, it's very surface level. The great intelligence, what you call it, the
supreme
intelligence, for example, also not really explored much.
Not really lah.
Which I wanted to see more of also because of how important it is to the Kree story lah.
I'm assuming it will be explored in Captain Marvel 2 lah.
I hope so lah.
Yeah.
But then that's the whole other phase lah.
Sure, phase 4.
Yeah, phase 4.
Yeah.
And it's just that from a comic book fan's perspective, it might be a bit disappointing. Because this is the first time you see Skrulls. You know? And if you know how dastardly Skrulls are in the comics, you know, for Secret War and how important Secret War was.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, to be fair, we just only saw one particular.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I don't want to like totally like condemn the movie for displaying the Skrulls the way they displayed the Skrulls, because this might be just a small segment of Skrulls.
It could be a more nuanced take on the entire culture, like
exactly.
being as big as an empire as it is.
Exactly.
You know, you can't label an entire race good or bad just on the actions of like a few characters.
But from what we understand, they are diaspora lah.
Yeah.
Like the Jewish population or like the Sri Lankan population, like that. You know, like that sort of diaspora. So yeah, it's just too bad that we couldn't explore these things further because there was no time lah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it was still very enjoyable.
Yeah.
I was fine with the CGI. I was fine with all the like Tesseract, the inclusion of the Tesseract, the inclusion of old mythos from before, and filling up the gaps, you know, with the cat. I won't say what happens. You know, with Nick Fury, you know, all that stuff. I'm fine with that. Yeah. Overall, I was okay. Rookie Coulson. That was really good to see.
And like mid-level Sam Jackson, mid-level Nick Fury.
Like he was
also
still mid-management, you know, not
correct,
yet top of shield.
And Coulson was really underneath, you know. Yeah.
But my Mendelsohn is one of my favorite.
Ben Mendelsohn, man. A nice twist on the usual Ben Mendelsohn character.
Yeah.
He's usually the villain, which is what we expected to be. So I like what they did with Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
He's always funny. He's always charismatic.
He is.
Well, what do you think, Isa?
I think generally, for me, Captain Marvel has always been about kind of establishing the power level, right? Since the announcement they first made where she was going to come in between the two Avengers movies, you kind of understood immediately, okay, like you need someone who's able to fight on the same level as Thanos, right? And while it only took all of 30 seconds for Thanos to establish his power level by like
beating up the
creaming Hulk
and
right? Loki at the same time, I think there wasn't going to be any chance that they would be able to slide Captain Marvel into Endgame with so many things already going on, you know. So I understand like its position within the MCU universe right now, right, in the timeline of the movies or the actual chronological layout of the movies. It suffers, like what both of you have covered. It suffers from the context, right? And because we know of that context, then the stakes are a little lower or non-existent at all. Much in the same way, any sort of Spider-Man announcements, like the trailers that they showed for Homecoming, in the same way also diminishes the stakes for everything that is going on in the MCU. So very enjoyable. I thought the CGI was really good, actually. I think it's very interesting to see that because the MCU has been around for so long, how much technology has developed over the decade-ish or so we've been following these things. Some of the outer space scenes were breathtaking, I really have to say. Well, at the same time, I think like a little waste of Brie Larson's talent. I feel like a lot of the time when she wasn't paired up with Samuel L. Jackson or with what's the
Lashana Lynch?
Yes, who plays Rambeau, right?
Yeah.
Like I do feel like her character was a little bit lost. The writing wasn't very, very clear. She didn't really have any ground to kind of stand on her own. I hope that placing her with Avengers and the entire brilliant chemistry that particular cast has established over the years will help her to become more of her own character in the series itself. Yeah.
As we've seen with like I mentioned, Steve Rogers and Thor, they didn't actually come into their own until the Avengers movies.
That is true.
I think Captain America and Thor in particular felt almost personality-less up until Joss Whedon wrote him in Avengers, and then he grew from there. Carol Danvers, is just at the beginning point.
Yeah.
I do agree that she feels a little undercooked in the same way that perhaps T'Challa felt undercooked in Black Panther.
Yes, for sure.
I know her story, but it's difficult to define her as a person beyond she's tough and powerful and exceptional, you know. Where's the complexity in her character? Yeah, she is a strong female protagonist, but perhaps now it's time to move beyond that into complex female protagonists.
Yeah, that's right.
She's no Sarah Connor or Ellen Ripley, for example, you know. Those characters were done in the 70s and the 80s. Also, like you mentioned, Lashana Lynch, I have to shout her out because I think she won't get as many headlines as Jude Law and Annette Bening and Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg. But I feel like in her small part, she stole the movie as Maria Rambo. She pops up halfway through, right? And totally did the emotional heavy lifting in terms of their shared chemistry and history.
I agree.
And that's what the film needed, lah. Her first real scene in the kitchen table, trying to reconnect with Carol, right, is the best bit of acting in the entire movie.
Agreed.
Like suddenly it's like, wow, acting.
Yeah, it's the first time that Carol Danvers seems human at all.
It was a little like jarring. It was like, oh, superhero, oh,
acting.
Whoa. She suddenly elevated everything. Like, I was like, wow, this is far above and beyond what was needed there. More than Carol, I think Maria felt like the heart of the movie, but she's in it for far too little. I mean, I guess all in all, I liked it, but didn't love it. A solid pass, but an unremarkable debut. Also, got to shout out the amazing Stan Lee cameos, which in our screening drew some ovations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the crowd was really receptive.
I mean, first of all, if you haven't seen the movie, it opens with a nice Stan Lee montage, you know, instead of the usual Marvel logo. And then Stan Lee pops up in the subway, reading a script for Mallrats. So if you guys don't know, if you're too young, Mallrats was a Kevin Smith movie back in the early 90s. And Stanley had a cameo in that, and he only had just had one line, you know, True Believers. You know, he was just reciting that line over and over again. Kevin Smith actually posted up a very tearful Instagram. He was very good friends with Stan Lee, of course. You know, he didn't know that that particular cameo was going to happen, especially with regards to a movie that, you know, that's so close to his heart as well. So I think that was a really cool touch, lah. One of my favorite bits of it. How would you guys rate this overall, and any final thoughts?
I'll actually give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
I had a lot of tremendous fun. Annette Bening being, Marvel wasn't too much of a controversial topic for me, lah.
Yeah, it wasn't as problematic, right?
Right? Gender swap, lah. So I don't really care.
Everybody was expecting it to be Jude Law, right? I liked it.
I liked it too.
I liked it.
I like that Yen Rock was Jude Law.
Yeah.
And he
I felt Jude Law just phoned home the role, man.
No, but I like that it wasn't, he wasn't the Supreme Intelligence.
Yeah, for sure.
He wasn't Marvel, sorry.
Yeah. He's actually the Mandarin, no, I'm kidding. Which
so
is the other twist that comic book fans hate.
So what I meant by I like that Jude Law was Yen Rock is that at least Marvel wasn't played by a phoning in Jude Law, lah.
Yes, that is true. That is very true. Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Aisa? How'd you rate this?
I'm gonna give it a 6.5. I think like it is good. I had fun, and I think it's important in the grand scheme of what the MCU is trying to do with this particular phase that they're trying to wrap up. But yeah, I mean, it's still a good movie. It's not great, but overall pretty fun.
Yeah, I'll give it slightly lower. I'll give it a 6. It's a pass. I like this movie. I mean, it's a moderate recommendation. Nothing too much to complain about. My only problem is just it was a little too safe, lah. And I realize I'm grading this on a different scale because MCU movies have come such a long way. Because if Captain Marvel had maybe come out in 2008, I would have given this a higher rating for sure. But I've come to expect more, lah. Yeah. Next up, we'll be reviewing one of the best horror movies of this month. Fuck that lah. Might be one of the best horror movies of the year. We're talking about Jordan Peele's follow-up to his Oscar-winning debut, Get Out. It is so good. It's glorious. It's a symphony of fear. It's an ambitious sci-fi allegory and a pitch black comedy about, you know, the haves and the have-nots. In my opinion, there is no sophomore slump here. Us is engaging, funny, and terrifying, but in a very different way than Get Out was. You know, I've said this a few times before, but much like comedy, horror comes from a very dark and socially observant place, you know. So it makes sense that Jordan Peele will be a master at both. Some people are confused how, you know. But I mean, if you think about where comedy comes from, it really does make sense, lah. So therefore, there is metaphor and commentary here. Some transcendent and some complex ones, but in a vacuum, I think it works as a straightforward horror thriller. If you don't want to take any of the subtext, just like if you want to take it at face value, it works as a home invasion movie. It's filled with wonderful acting, especially from Lupita Nyong'o, and in fact the entire cast who is tasked with doing dual roles. There are active and likable protagonists, which is rare for a genre that frequently banks on passive victims. It has effective scares, some creative set pieces in there, and some breathtaking imagery, with dual meaning. So like I said, if you wanna turn your brain off and take it at face value, you can still enjoy this. But if you wanna dig deeper, boy, there's a lot to dissect in terms of its subtext, but in a very different way than Get Out was, because Get Out was more thematically concise. And I think the subtext here is more broadly applicable to different forms of societal oppression or class divisions. What do you guys think about Us?
Trump's America.
Yes. I mean, a lot of people have pointed out that Us can also be referring to the US, like the United States.
So that was my immediate pickup when I was watching it, about the rise of a weird subculture, or rather the rise of a new type of culture within America itself. This weird, very divisive, very dangerous kind of mindset, but apart from that, I actually like the brisk story world building that Jordan Peele actually had on the using the subway lines as the like all these miles and miles of subway stations and lines,
underground tunnels,
right? Where it's actually an experiment that the government has had in place just so that they could actually clone humans.
Sort of copy, duplicate, psychically linked.
But they don't have the soul, that kind of thing,
I mean, we won't delve into too much spoiler territory here. We're trying to keep it as vague because I think it's important for you to go in fresh and make up your own mind and interpret the subtext how you want it.
But that whole idea, that world building was actually very brisk and nice, and added a lot of color to the entire movie. For me, I love the family, the four of them. Great acting by Winston Duke, sorry. Winston Supper.
Winston is his title in
England. His title is Duke Winston. Maybe the first black Duke, I think.
The English Mbaku, right?
The English Mbaku. So anyway, he was great. Winston Duke, how he played this two white. Sorry, how you say this? A black man trying to be too black, lah.
Or basically like a white man inside a black man. He's one of those really
like a nerdy black man.
Like one of those 90s sitcoms portrayal of black people. Like they needed to be not as edgy and a bit more palatable to the white audience. So he's that kind of guy. Like nerdy.
But his characteristics are nice. How he was very loyal to his family, how he was very protective. And all the dad jokes. Oh my god, you're right. But overall, it was great. It was great. Jordan Peele really does not suffer from a slump, lah.
What do you think, Isa?
I think what was most interesting for me, right, is just the way that Peele has decided to play with the tension and the humor at the same time. That's not something that we kind of got in Get Out, right? I think that was a bit more linear, or at least the pacing of the way that he built tension was very, very different. It was more long drawn. He tried to hold you for longer periods of time. I just noticed that the audience in the cinema that we were watching in were extremely uncomfortable for most periods of time because they didn't know whether to be afraid or to laugh. Right, so there were a lot of nervous giggling. We had some patrons who were there who just couldn't stop laughing, even though there were points in time where nobody would have.
I mean, they were really noisy. That was a very noisy audience.
It was a very noisy audience, and I thought it was fascinating, right? Just in the way, because in the middle of these really frightful moments, or just after frightful moments, right, you got a great piece of comedy, right in there, and you want to laugh. And at the same time, so the release of tension is very different, right? You have one that is released by the humor that comes into play, and then you have the tension that is released by actually experiencing the fear and that. And the shuffling of those within the movie itself, I thought was very fascinating itself. And I'm just wondering if that was, kind of how intentional that was, right? Given that what I feel the subtext is about is a very uncomfortable thing to talk about or even to hear about.
I mean, I do agree lah. In the end, I feel like the only slight drawbacks are that its twist ending is fairly predictable. I did enjoy the allegory, however, about a literal underclass.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, it's mostly about the haves and the have-nots, how we view otherness, and, the more obvious metaphor of our constant struggle against the worst versions of ourselves. I think it's beautifully executed. The allegory, while potent, is something I've seen before, though. Nevertheless, it's still a great movie and has a good chance of ending up in my top 10 at the end of the year. Right now it ranks very highly, but there's a lot of movies that haven't come out yet. It's still it's an 8 out of 10 for me. High recommendation.
Yep, it's an 8 out of 10 for me too.
Yeah, how about you?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely because I did not fall asleep throughout the movie.
Oh yes,
Nice.
I was awake.
Yeah, possibly because of the audience noise.
No. I fell asleep in Blade Runner, guys.
But then, okay. Blade Runner was a more contemplative,
That's true.
withdrawn movie. Yeah. Okay. So next up, we'll be talking about a couple of animated projects. First one is coming out on Netflix. Actually, both are streaming. First one coming out on Netflix. It is created by Deadpool director Tim Miller and famed auteur David Fincher. It's called Love, Death and Robots. It's Netflix's new and very, very, very not safe for work animated anthology series that presents, I guess, an all-you-can-eat buffet of sci-fi and fantasy. It's what this podcast was made for. And all of the stories are short. They range from 5 to 17 minutes each. Episodes vary wildly in tone, from episodic comedy to epic action to gory horror
To sci-fi.
And the animation styles also can range, from hand-drawn anime to ultra-realistic, photorealistic CG motion capture animation to Saturday morning cartoons to the Adult Swim kind of style. So I like the different range and variety. There's something for every taste here. And the mocap was so good. The mocap blew my mind. There was even one live action one starring Topher Grace and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which confused me for a bit because I thought it was mocap for a while, and that's how good the mocap was. There is no overarching unifying theme to this anthology, unlike Black Mirror. So there is something for every taste in this delightful and, quite frankly, visually dazzling genre cornucopia. It feels like a love letter to genre storytelling, actually. As with all anthologies, there are a lot of ups and downs. But all the episodes feature eye-popping visuals, assortment of cool ideas, and guess what? Even if you don't like them, they're brief enough that they are easy to breeze through. It's not like a bad Black Mirror episode.
Where you need 45 minutes.
Or to an hour. So I think that's good. I think the operative word here for this show is cool. They worked under the thesis of let's make something cool.
Okay.
There is no real unifying theme outside of make this shit look as cool as possible.
Okay.
I think that's the short and succinct thesis. So I'm gonna pose 2 questions to each of you. Firstly, what are your overall thoughts of the show as a whole, pros and cons? And secondly, name your favorite episode and why.
Okay, Ken.
Yeah.
Simple enough. The first one, I would say that I feel that because Netflix gave... I saw some of the creators posting up, the creators for the first one. Sony's... What?
Sunny's Edge.
Sunny's Edge, yeah. So wait,
Monster Fight Club.
Correct, that one. So... And for the one with the girl with
the dragon tattoo, what?
Close enough. The Witness.
The Witness.
Yeah, where the creators were talking about how Netflix gave them total freedom, no censorship, no nothing. Do balls out whatever you want to do.
But Netflix does that for every show.
No, I know. But to see it in animation is relatively new, I haven't really seen a non NSFW animation
on
in
Netflix
a while on Netflix.
Yeah, I know Adult Swim does that.
Adult Swim is a whole other ball game lah.
Yeah.
But so and to see freedom unleashed, unbridled like this was quite fun lah. And because it's such short, 17 short stories essentially, right?
16, 17, 18, around there lah.
Around there, really short, easy to consume. They just threw everything they could lah onto the wall lah. See what stuck lah. It felt like that. And majority of it was good. I would say maybe 1 or 2 was kind of boring.
Okay, I'm actually more half. I liked half of it and half of it I didn't like.
I was okay with most of it lah.
Okay.
But my favorite actually would be Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. Tell me why. And what is it about?
Okay.
The mocap lah.
The mocap.
Yeah, the mocap was insanity.
Did it feel to you like it was a very well done version of Starship Troopers, like the animated series?
Kinda. It had that element to it. It had an element of Top Gun, with the planes and all that. Less of the fighter job kind of thing, lah. But the relationship between man and machine that was very beautifully explored in such a short amount of time. You just had little hints that the machine was alive by when you had the perspective of the plane looking at I want to say Posey. It's Posey, right?
From Orange is the New Black. Yeah, it's Posey.
Okay.
It's Posey. Samara Wiley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how she also resonated with the machine, lah. The way that she survived the first mission, the way she touched the nameplate, and eventually how she did not want to abandon the plane. So in 17 minutes they did that. It was amazing how much emotion was I was involving in it, lah. I know it's not the most artistic one or the most mindfuck thing. Like, it has a very simple, very straightforward story, but the mocap was great. The emotional attachment I had to it was awesome. That's why Lucky 13 lah. I know what's your favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to take that one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. How about you, Isa?
Oh, I think for me, in general, as an anthology, definitely one of the better sci-fi anthologies that we've gotten in recent years. I think there are more hits than there are misses in general. And the hits are there for like different things. I was very wowed by some of the CGI and mocap for some, so like Sony's Edge. I really like the monster design in that. I really like the monster design in Beyond a Killer Rift as well. Like, especially near the end, I was just like kind of blown away by that entire scene. The Witness has an amazing dance scene, which I couldn't believe was CGI in the first place, right? And all of that was really solid for me in those things. But what blew me away even more was just the kind of very tight, very concise storytelling and character development that these writers were able to push out over such a short period of time. And so things like Zima Blue and like Suits I really, really liked, just because I felt very keenly for the characters that they're in a very short amount of time. But for me, definitely, I think Good Hunting is my favorite, just because of its animation style and the fact that it has all the things that I love, right? It has Japanese mythology, you have your yaoguai, you have your steampunk stuff going on, and like it's like an otaku's wet dream.
Is it Japanese or Chinese?
Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah, Chinese. Sorry.
But I mean, animation style is Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of manga inspired.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, I mean, like that's all. Like, it was very neat. It was one of those things that I would have gladly thought of as a pilot and hope to watch a series for. And
actually, all of them.
Yes. I was actually watching this with my brother, and once we finished Sunny's Edge, we were just like, oh wow, I can't wait to see like Monster Fight Club. Like, I really want to see Monster Fight Club.
The tournament arc,
Yeah, exactly. Right. So
except the whole show is a tournament arc, right?
Yeah. So it was really good. That's kind of my personal favorites. I do have a lot that I really, really like. Like throughout the entire thing. But stand out for me will be the just a couple that I've mentioned.
Yeah. I think for me as a whole, for the positives, it's obviously very visually striking. Every episode, the ideas and concepts can perhaps be tropey, I guess, especially for veteran genre fans like us. But the design is astonishing, and since each episode is such a short investment, even the less fulfilling ones or more ephemeral stories don't take up too much time. Unlike other anthologies, I enjoy the sheer variety of stories on offer here, so it's not so limited by theme, ranging from monsters and mechas to spirits and space adventure.
The Russians,
yeah. I mean, it means that Love, Death and Robots never feels repetitive and always feels fresh and imaginative. On the downside, the majority of these stories, while interesting, lack emotional stakes and properly fleshed out characters, but that is as expected because of the runtime. Which is why the episodes that stood out to me are the ones that efficiently make use of its brief running time to tell a big story that takes place over years and still feels intimate and emotionally nuanced. Like Isa, Good Hunting is my favorite. It's based on a Ken Liu short story, actually. It's a 2-parter. You can read it online right now. It's really, really good. It's
Thanks for the link, by the way.
No worries. It's a great story about, wondrous story about a young boy son of a spirit hunter. First it begins, his first hunt of his dad, to his coming of age story as a young man, then his eventual travel to Hong Kong to work for his newly arrived English colonial masters. It's also a love story of sorts between a young man and a fox spirit known as a Huli Jing, I think. So I mean, from its initial Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon stout opening fight with a demon to an unexpected detour into a sci-fi steampunk climax, it tells a personal story and has emotional progress in terms of hating and then loving the unknown lah. And it does all this in 15 minutes, as well as telling a broader story about the world's progress from the spiritual to the technological, through the Industrial Revolution and through colonialism. Both sides, spirit and technology, may seem different, but they're both pretty magical and equally brutal, depending on how you want to look at it or use it. It's a beautiful story. I really, really loved it. Overall, I think I'll rank... I'm gonna get your ratings first. How would you rate this?
Fine.
Yeah.
I'll give it a solid 8 now.
Okay.
Just because majority of it, I enjoyed majority of the short films. I love the mocap. I cannot emphasize how good the mocap was in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 out of 10 because I only needed a day to watch the entire thing.
It's 3 hours.
Yeah, and it was great. It was so much fun.
What about you, Isa?
I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. I think it averages out. I had a lot of 10s, like Good Hunting was a 10, Zima Blue was a 10. And it kind of averages out to about an 8. I highly recommend it. Like, it's just so interesting, like the whole breadth of what these animators and writers have done with Netflix money and no restrictions. And I hope to see a lot more of it.
Right, nice. I would actually rate it a little lower. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. I really like it, but I didn't enjoy. To me, to be honest, the majority of the stories were just okay. Only a select few were like really, really great. And I guess I'm more of a story guy than an animation guy. So I mean, to me, like, the technical stuff is like window dressing, and then the core of the story is what I really focus on. And I think maybe half of it, like stuff like Ice Age and the 3 robots and the cat thing and alternate histories, and a bunch of them seem very too slight lah.
Okay.
So 7 out of 10 for me lah. And before we move on, was that opening titles intentionally reminiscent of Black Mirror?
Right? It had the sound, even the sound sounded alike, right?
The sound design was very, very similar.
So I thought that was just me.
Is that like the Netflix way of saying this is a sci-fi anthology?
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be.
Speaking of animated and mechas and great action animation, we're gonna go into another streaming series, this time from Rooster Teeth, which is a website. If you're not familiar with Rooster Teeth, they do RWBY, they do Red vs. Blue, which are already minor hits, but I think like Genlock feels like a next step for Rooster Teeth specifically lah.
For sure.
Maybe not in the context of animation in general, but for Rooster Teeth as a brand, this feels like their most developed work and their most fully fleshed out work. I think this mecha action series is quite engaging. It's clearly inspired by Mobile Suit Gundam and Pacific Rim lah, but I think it stands on its own because it feels more grounded and focused on emotional investment. I think like the first couple of episodes which they release simultaneously, it instantly hooks you with this emotional and tragic love story, and then it world builds after that. So the character development is ace, but let's be real, you're here to watch giant robots fighting, right?
Yep, that's right.
And when the action hits, it's actually really, really well choreographed. It's incredibly fluid, thrillingly sequenced. I like action that I can follow, that's coherent.
Yes.
Unlike Transformers which is the most absurd example I can think of plus its voice cast, Michael B. Jordan, Macy Williams, Dakota Fanning, David Tennant, etc. Is top notch. I like it. The only, I think, downside is that the emotional focus of the first 2 episodes is sort of dissipates throughout the second half of the season.
Yep.
And it becomes a more action-oriented show. I mean, that being said, the action is great, so I didn't mind it too much. But the character work is an afterthought in the second half of the season, so a bit of a downside for me. What do you guys think?
Honestly, Genlock was an okay series for me. It wasn't, I mean, Rooster Teeth is something that, it's kind of like, Red vs. Blue is kind of my
Your favorite?
Like, when I was growing up,
Yeah.
back in university.
Yeah.
I still remember watching it. And it was hilarious because it was on its take on Halo multiplayer.
Right.
And how slowly it became its own thing lah.
Yeah.
It was parodying Halo and it became Red and Blue.
Yeah.
Red versus Blue. And it had really good humor, and I felt that I was expecting too much from Rooster Teeth when it came to Genlock. I felt the writing was a bit shoddy at times.
But I mean, if you think back to RWBY 1, season 1, and Red vs. Blue season 1,
correct.
You know, they were like more shoddy lah.
No, of course.
Yeah,
but then when you compare it to season 10,
right. Yeah, but I mean,
that sort of thing lah. But because we were already exposed to like that better writing by the end, you know, so I expected a bit more from Genlock, I guess. But like what you said, the action scenes I felt was where the focus was, and thank God they did that well lah. Because I felt that carried the entire series. Overall character development is fine, and love story is very like she has a boyfriend, really like chill.
Yeah,
you got no penis.
No, he doesn't. What, I guess? Oh no, it's only his upper body.
It's only his upper body.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, no, okay. Jokes aside.
Yeah.
Okay lah. I mean, the voice acting was actually quite decent.
Yeah.
There was the girl with the Spanish accent. I can't remember the character. Yeah, she was. That one a bit shoddy sometimes.
like she lost it.
Like I felt like that one needed, like, if she could speak in Spanish, I think it would be even better. Or whatever her native language is.
Like the Japanese guy who's always only spoken Japanese. Actually.
Yeah, which also made more sense, you know. So I felt that if they kept the actors to their native languages, it would have resonated better lah. Yeah, just I hope the dialogue improves over time. There were witty moments, which I appreciated. I liked that they felt like a team by the end of it. Like you could see, this is actually quite a decent team, you know, fighting whatever lah. So yeah, I like that the team building,
the mind melding lah, which kind of takes the Pacific Rim concept to a next level.
Yeah.
With multiple people,
and how they actually like really went into like explaining all those things to us.
Right.
I kind of liked it. Some people were bothered by it, saying there's too much information.
Yeah.
You know, but for me, I like world building, so this sort of things make sense.
Oriented people.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, good on them lah.
Cool. I guess let's just wrap it up. That was your thoughts. What's your rating? And then we'll move on.
Sorry. I'll rate it 6.5 out of 10.
How about you, Isa?
Oh, okay. So a couple of quick thoughts. I enjoyed it. Yeah, but I think like having been exposed to a lot of the material that inspired Genlock, right? It aspires to a great amount of great content, especially from anime. And there's very little that's original about what they're trying to do. Even from the character designs, you've got your Overwatch like ripoff with Widow, and I can name, like, off the top of my head, probably there are like 5 to 6 animes that they draw kind of directly from, in terms of even the technology that they're talking about, the concepts of mind melding, even some of the mecha designs are also very, very familiar. The voice cast was great, you know, and I think Rooster Teeth has come a long way, but in terms of the standard of what's out there in the world right now, as far as mecha and storytelling, at least on the Japanese side of the world, it is quite lackluster in my opinion. It's great on Rooster Teeth. I think that this is the logical next step, given the jump that they made from the time that RBWI got cancelled into season 5, where they got a huge budget increase and everything kind of went up from there. They still got a long way to go. I do hope that Genlock continues and it finds its own space and its own voice, because right now it really is just an amalgamation of quite a number of ripoffs, in my opinion. But that being said, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. The action is already very good for something that they have not done before. Like even for RBWY, it's never been that level. You know, of animation and all choreography, and I hope they keep that up as well. It's a 6 for me.
Right. Yep. I mean, can you call them? I guess they are an indie studio lah. Yeah. Most definitely lah. I'm impressed lah, because you know they don't have the backing of like a Sony or Marvel or like the big animation studios over in Japan. So I mean, I'm kind of grading on the curve there lah. So I'll rate it about the same as I did Love, Death and Robots, 7 out of 10. Mostly the downsides are that I've seen it before. Most of the episodes I've seen it before.
Tropey lah.
But you know, cliches are cliches for a reason, and as long as they are done well enough,
sometimes it works.
Yeah, because they work lah. And if they're done well enough, I can accept it. And because, you know, short 8 episodes, 20 minutes each,
Not a big time investment.
Not a big time investment. I enjoyed it for what it was, 7 out of 10. Okay, we're gonna keep talking about animation right now. It's animation all the way. This time we're going to the heart of anime, Japan. The return of Mob Psycho 100, which is one of the in my opinion, one of the best series I think I saw in 2016, or was it 2015? I forgot when it came out. Mob Psycho 100 season 1. 2016, right? Yeah.
Just after One Punch Man.
Yeah, exactly. And like One Punch Man, it had the similar kind of humor, satire of kind of the shonen tropes and all of that. So we're gonna be talking about the long-awaited season 2 of Mob Psycho 100. As of this recording, we haven't seen the final episode of Mob Psycho 100 yet, which is the boss fight, obviously. But we've seen 99% of it, so I think it's enough to render a review. Because even if the final episode is the worst thing I've ever seen, it's still a phenomenal season. So I mean, so that's regardless lah. Season 2 of Mob Psycho 100, I think it's pure joy. I really loved it. This continues, I think, to be the rare anime that rewards empathy and kindness over strength and power. Fights are usually a deplorable last resort, and villains are rehabilitated, all of them, instead of being destroyed. The mundane is definitely balanced with the fantastical, treating small, emotionally complex, character-driven stories with as much importance as hugely epic psychic battles. And I do have to say that the animation here is so dazzling and wildly colorful, although a slight step down from season 1.
Agreed.
Shigeo specifically, and even Raigen, who is his conman mentor, their personal journeys are richly compelling this season, especially in the episode where an evil spirit traps Mob in an alternate reality, and then he's without his powers, and his instead of being bitter and disenfranchised, his suffering from being victimized only enhances his optimistic nature. He endeavors to be more grateful and to help the world become a less cruel place. Or when Mob splits from Raigen's agency, and Raigen has to confront the fact that he has no real friends, and actually grows into a more well-adjusted person from that realization. This isn't part of the larger arc involving, the evil Esper organization Claw, but it's handled with just as much care. Small episodes about, Mob exercising to run a marathon, or the massive climax against the hits of Claw, all have value and are filled with so much heart. I think Mob as a character and as a show is really concerned about moral philosophy.
It is.
I think the second to last episode, which is the one we just saw, Mob has a great, I guess, philosophical exchange with the final boss and I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the fight.
Yes.
I think the show's quirky sense of humor continues to shine, much like One Punch Man, like you mentioned earlier. It enjoys using anti-climax and understatement as punchlines to subvert shonen tropes. It never forgets that it's a comedy, but when it does commit to the action, it is so tense and thrilling and impressive. Some of the best action you'll see in anime and anywhere. I think the show is really impressive. What do you think?
I mean, okay, for season 1, when One Punch Man came out, and then shortly after Mob Psycho, always a lot of comparisons being drawn, right? Because same mangaka for both of them. But where One Punch Man deals with satire and in sarcasm and in balls to the wall ridiculousness, right? And the whole revelry in that. Mob Psycho has a lot of heart, which is something that quite honestly we don't get in modern anime today, right?
Shonen
especially in the shonen genre of things. I think you've covered most of the major points. You can't really shake off this very substantial growth that Shigeo goes through, especially in season 2, right? As compared to season 1, and all the little things that makes him who he is as he comes into his own is really quite fascinating, and I really enjoyed it. Still one of the best action out there right now. Nothing really comes close at the moment in terms of the the sheer visual flair of it. And not leaning into that. Leaning into the whole gore and violence thing, which is most common nowadays, right?
And Devilman, Crybaby, etc.
And so on and so forth. I think a lot of the psychic manifestations of their powers is very apt and is very it's just properly fleshed out and visualized, right? In a way that say, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. Even though it's kind of like pushing the boundaries of what you're gonna be seeing in animation right now. Yeah. So overall, like for me, Mob Psycho in general as a franchise has been really, really good. For season 2, despite the fact that the fight scenes are a bit less front and center,
it makes up for it with the emotional development, right?
Yeah, so it's easily an 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'm giving it slightly high, 8.5 out of 10.
Nice.
One of the best things we've watched this month. Next up, we'll be delving into a small segment called Quick Hits, where I will be talking about some of the movies, TV shows, and this one, sometimes, I'll include some podcasts here as well, of things that my co-hosts have not been able to read, watch, or listen to over the past month.
Because we have jobs.
Because we have jobs, and it is my job to, I guess, consume pop culture, so here I am with my thoughts.
I'm only going to jump in on one.
Okay. Actually, anything you want to jump in on, you can.
Sure.
Even if you have thoughts on something you haven't seen yet. The first one is the one I'm going to spend the most time on because it's the best thing that I think I'm reviewing this month. In general, it's a movie called Border.
Oh, okay.
This movie was actually Sweden's nominee for Best Foreign Language Film at this year's Oscars. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that if Roma did not exist, right, this movie would have won. I promise you that. Roma is Roma. It's can't be beat. It's that good. Anyway, it's directed by this guy called Ali Abbasi, and it's written by the writer of Let the Right One In, both the novel and the movie. The Swedish one, not the American one. Border is very oddly poignant and a uniquely unforgettable movie. And it's probably the most uniquely unforgettable movie you'll see this year. It's part magic realist fantasy and part romantic drama and part crime thriller. It's a very grounded genre-bending effort that's just masterful. Okay, so you wanted to know the premise, right?
Yeah.
It follows a customs agent named Tina who is physically deformed. She looks, her entire visage is actually quite grotesque, to be honest.
Okay.
But she's a good person. And the emotional undercurrent of the story deals with how lonely she is, living in society's margins because of how she looks. People either ignore her or take advantage of her need for companionship. Okay, so here's the thing. Tina works in customs. So she becomes... how do I say this? She works in customs because she has a seemingly preternatural ability to sniff out guilt. She can smell human emotions like shame and rage and fear, which makes her good at catching, smugglers or terrorists, because they will be feeling those things. And half of the movie's plot centers around a businessman that she arrests who possesses a hard drive of child pornography. Due to her ability, she's kind of roped in by the police to help find the people behind this child pornography ring.
So she's a bit of an Esper kind of character?
But that's just a side plot. Although it does tie into the shocking climax, but I won't spoil that. But the big thing is that she meets another person at a border crossing sharing the same physical deformities as her. So feeling a sense of connection for the first time, they fall in love, and that's where the romance comes in. Since the trailer already implies this, I'm okay telling you guys about the reveal because, it's in the trailer. And honestly, it's ground level setup. The man that she meets informs her that she's not a human at all. That she's actually a troll. And her discovery of her biology is emotionally cathartic because, she doesn't feel like a freak anymore. I'm
part of something.
I'm part of something. I'm a natural person. I'm
all this time that she's been out of place.
Correct. She was actually adopted. So she's just being, in the wrong crowd, so to speak. But it also doesn't shy away from very gross depictions of her biology and nature.
As a troll.
On the minor end, there are, the naked bodies and the bug eating. On the more disturbing end are the very, very graphic sex scenes and, troll genitalia, how they work, how they're different, what they are.
Troll porn.
No, it's not porn at all. But I guess if you were a troll, you'd like get turned on. But it's so gross. Like it verges on body horror. Because she. I don't want to describe but a lot of like genitalia.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite gross So the reproductive functions
of a troll.
Of a troll. It's fascinating but also very unsettling. The acting in this is phenomenal. I think the animalistic physicality of the trolls is very un-Hollywood because it leans into the body horror somewhat,
But this feels gross.
There's something primal about it's just inside your gut. You feel like this is not right, kind of thing. About
the
way they act.
Yeah, I get that.
So this isn't like the sexy demons or the buff werewolves you
No,
see
no,
in
no,
CW.
no,
You know
no,
what I
no.
mean? Everything from the snarl to their mannerisms to their bodily features makes you feel frightened on
Unnatural?
on a primordial level. I think I don't know. Maybe we might have encountered trolls in the past.
Well, that's very hard to unlock, man.
Yeah. You once you see it, you can tell me why why this kind of imagery is the stuff of nightmares.
Okay.
Even if Tina's personality is kind and gentle and she's helping bust a child pornography ring.
Yeah.
And it's that humanity in Tina that gives the film its emotional heft. It's a very artful and uncomfortably realistic portrait of how diminished outsiders can feel and how easy it would be for them to succumb to hatred and retribution. The fact that Tina doesn't, while reconciling so many heavy revelations about her genetic history, makes for a very compelling protagonist. This is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Whoa.
Border is now available on digital and Blu-ray, but if you want to catch it on a big screen, it's also showing at Golden Village, Suntec specifically, via our favorite art house.
If you're in Singapore
If you're in Singapore, via our favorite art house distributors, Anticipate Pictures.
Because I just saw our stats. We have majority of our Spotify listeners are from America. California and Texas.
I hope you liked our Us discussion.
What a weird combination.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Our Mixcloud listeners are weirdly enough mostly from Vietnam and Thailand.
There we go.
So I guess you can tell like which platforms are more heavily used in Asia and in America lah. Sorry to sidetrack. That's not part of our quiz. Next up, I'll be reviewing Spotify. No. Next up, we go from indie fantasy to indie sci-fi.
Okay.
With a brand new film called Prospects. The setting and premise is a little Firefly because it's a space western that feels like a combination of. Have you seen True Grit?
Yes.
Okay, so it feels like True Grit's survivalist frontier vibe.
Okay.
With the intelligence and aesthetic of Duncan Jones's Moon.
Yeah.
Moon, right?
I've seen Moon. The one with what's her name?
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
Oscar winner Sam Rockwell. So the film follows a teenage girl and her father traveling to a remote alien moon.
Oh, this is a True Grit type of thing.
Aiming to strike it rich. They are working class people struggling to survive, but luckily they've secured a contract to harvest a large deposit of valuable gems hidden in the depths of the moon's toxic forest. So like
a gold rush like that
a gold rush, exactly.
Okay.
So this whole scenario evokes a sense of the gold rush from the Old West. And like a gold rush, just going into unforgiving terrain to dig for valuable gems isn't as straightforward as it seems.
Yeah.
They encounter a variety of disreputable characters ranging from criminals to mercenaries, and they're all driven by greed lah. So this is a very, very classic Western just on an alien moon lah. So it's a kind of a high concept genre mashup done very lo-fi because of its very small budget, and it works because the atmosphere is rich, and the world building is so efficient, and the character dynamics are so striking. Pedro Pascal from Narcos and Game of Thrones is the biggest name of the cast. He's the star of it, and his delivery of Deadwood-esque Western dialogue is wonderful. You know that kind of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to like imitate. I can't do it. Like very David Milch or Joss Whedon's Firefly, Clint Eastwood. If you've seen westerns, you know how they talk, right? So I like that. But newcomer Sophie Thatcher, I think it's his first real role in a feature film.
How did she do?
She's a teen, very young, I think 16, 15. Her vulnerability and growth is what the film hinges upon. Plus, if you're a fan of The Wire, like I know you are, Hadi, you'll be happy to know that a couple of the villains are played by Wire gangsters.
Oh no!
First is Bubbles, aka
Bubbles is a villain.
Andre Arroyo, he plays like a cult leader who is on the moon.
But it's Bubbles.
And another is a mercenary played by Slim Charles.
Hey, Slim,
aka Anwan Glover. So the thing is, right? These two villains, you don't see their faces at all because they're covered in
prosthetics. Spacesuits. Okay,
they're not aliens. They're no aliens.
Okay, yeah.
So they're covered in spacesuits lah. But the thing is, right, I recognize their voice immediately.
Wow!
It's like, holy shit, this is The Wire in the Old West on the moon.
Oh, this is so cool. I'm definitely going to catch this.
Everything about this is awesome. It's done on the cheap, but it looks cinematic as fuck. It looks very like a Vimeo short film kind of thing.
Okay.
And its vibe feels very lived in. Plus, I adore the soundtrack. Most of the film is caught by gorgeous orchestrals by Daniel L.K. Caldwell, but there's also a lot of vintage South Asian tracks thrown in for some reason. I think the girl, for somehow, has an iTunes filled with like 70s Thai funk and like 50s Chinese rock and roll and Bollywood dance music. So honestly, her playlist feels like it's curated by Darker Than Wax.
Wow.
So it adds like a splash of color to it lah. All in all, it's just an engaging, smartly entertaining ride. The only downside is I think the film is too brief, and because of
how long is it?
It's 80 minutes ish.
Oh wow, that is short.
So the climax feels a bit rushed lah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a 8 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Next up, I'll be reviewing a new series starring Steve Buscemi. Yet another afterlife workplace comedy. You know, after The Good Place, this seems to be very in trend. It's called Miracle Workers. It's a star-studded new comedy starring, as I mentioned,
I saw this trailer.
yeah, Steve Buscemi,
He's God, right?
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy from the Indian guy from Deadpool.
The Indian guy from Deadpool, right? The taxi driver.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. So it deals with well, okay. First, let me tell you, it's based on a book by Simon Rich.
I haven't read
What in God's Name, lah.
Uh-huh.
So it's exactly the same thing. Same writer also.
Okay.
Show running this show. So it deals with God, played by Steve Buscemi, who is
Yeah.
busy with his hobbies.
Yeah.
So it's up to a low-level angel Craig, played by Daniel Radcliffe, and his fellow angels in the quote-unquote Department of Prayer Response to deal with humanity's prayers. It sounds a bit like The Good Place, you know, a workplace comedy
A bit.
dealing with the divine, and considering the names involved, I was very excited.
But not the workers of the divine.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. But unfortunately, the laughs aren't really plentiful enough. The ideas aren't exciting enough.
Okay.
And the story isn't gripping enough. I think Buscemi is kind of wasted on subpar material. So is Radcliffe, for that matter. The show lacks charm and wit and feels bland, despite all the many oddball characters and situations it presents.
Oh, the potential is there.
Potential was there, I know.
Yeah.
So this is not a new Good Place. It's a 3 out of 10.
Oh, yo, 3 out of 10.
Yeah, it's
God
pretty,
damn.
It's pretty bad. Yeah,
Okay.
goddamn. Yeah, perfect. Next up, I'll be talking about The Kid Who Would Be King. This is Joe Cornish's first movie.
I'm really excited. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's his first movie in I think 8 years,
Yeah.
9 years since Attack the Block. You know, the alien invasion movie
Yeah,
set
yeah.
in South London, where a street gang who all look and sound like they belong in a crime music video or fight aliens. So it was one of my favorite sci-fi comedies of the time. I was highly anticipating this
Yeah.
one, much like Hardy. This once again involves English kids.
This was aimed towards like your children, right?
Children, yeah. This is a very kiddie show. And it uses specifically English humor, but it's much broader and commercial and crowd-pleasing than his previous work.
Okay.
It's his attempt at doing a Spielberg movie. And it largely succeeds. Just quickly, the story is about Alex, who is your average kid until he stumbles upon the mythical sword, Excalibur. Now he must unite his friends into a band of knights, and together with Merlin, played by Patrick Stewart, wonderfully, am I that?
Yeah.
Take on the wicked enchantress Morgana.
Oh.
It's the kind of Morven Arthurian tale for kids that I've seen in Troll Hunters, for example.
Yeah.
And while it's not as good as Troll Hunters, this is still pretty fun in its own right. The keyword here is fun.
Yeah.
It's fluffy, it's energetic, it's a popcorn movie through and through.
Good feels?
Yeah, it's a diluted The Goonies.
Oh.
So it's a perfectly serviceable popcorn experience.
I mean, I saw the trailer and
Yeah.
I saw the part when they were opening the round table.
Yeah.
That was cute.
Funny, right?
Yeah.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10,
Really,
okay.
really solid. Like,
Definitely catch it. I'll definitely
turn off
catch
your brain, go in there, have fun with your
it.
kids.
Is it still screening in Singapore?
Still screening. Just opened 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
As of this recording. So
Okay.
it will still be out. For sure.
Alright.
Next up, Hardy's going to want to jump in on this.
Oh,
We're going to be
yes.
talking about the second season of American Gods, plagued by controversy. Brian Fuller, Michael Green, original showrunners, left in a cloud, in a huff, over budgetary disagreement, shall we say? I'm gonna touch on this very quickly because
Yeah.
I'm
Let's
not
not give it time.
I'm not watching the full season to do a full review on this simply because it's not worth it.
Nope.
In the hands of Brian Fuller and Michael Green, American Gods felt like a revelation. I would say a small improvement on an already amazing novel by Neil Gaiman.
Mm-hmm.
It was ambitious, it was visually inventive, it was filled with narrative flourishes that dazzled and wowed. But now with Fuller and Green fired, American Gods Season 2 is a mess.
Feels
It feels hollow and dull, and an abject failure in narrative, ambition, and storytelling. I've only seen the first 3 episodes so far, and it's already at a point of no return, I feel, because it's so boring, it's opaque, it's uninspired, and it's upsetting to me because
it has so much potential.
potential of a great show, and because of that, Stars has lost the show completely. Rather than just like maybe spend a couple extra million, right? Now they've lost all the investment from the first season because the show is done. The show is done. It's a 2 out of 10 for me. What do you think about this, American?
I'll give it a 2 out of 10, man. I mean, they wasted so much goodwill that was built up over season 1.
Yeah.
You know, like Neil Gaiman became one of the showrunners, right?
He was forced on.
Yeah, not like he. And sometimes that doesn't work.
Yeah, there were 3 other showrunners.
Yeah, I know.
Well, each fired also.
Which all that I mean the drama behind the scenes and all that was crazy already. But when the first episode came out, and what they presented was something that was so I want to use the same word that you use, uninspired.
Uninspired, yeah.
You know, it felt like all that that time getting to know Shadow, getting to know Odin and Wednesday.
Spoilers, but it doesn't matter.
Season 1, what?
Fuck it, no, you're not gonna watch it anyway.
Yeah, if you watch season 1, you will know that Odin is Mr. Wednesday.
Yeah,
you know, and everything, the new gods being introduced, and how great it was to see the new gods in season 1. And suddenly it was a shell of a season, a shell of itself, and it was so disappointing. It was, I mean, the low rating is because of the disappointment, lah.
Yeah,
it's just that I expected so much more. Even with all the drama, I thought that it can be a bit better than what I got.
I've seen showrunners change before.
Exactly.
Like the West Wing, for example.
Yeah.
The show wasn't
Star Trek Discovery.
The show didn't. I mean, they weren't de-improvements.
Yeah.
They were kind of de-improvements, but they weren't bad.
But they weren't bad. They still like maintain a kind of like standard, you know?
Yeah, I mean, West Wing season 5 and 6 were okay.
Was still okay.
Yeah. But this was like a plummet, man.
What happened?
Oh, God.
Like, they tried to use the flourish of the being in Valhalla and being in...
Felt like a cover act, though.
Exactly. Yeah. It felt like a shell. Like, this doesn't... I don't know. 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10.
Okay. So, next up, right, I'm gonna kind of rewind back in time because I was shocked because I was looking back at our old episodes and I realized that I didn't review it back in December.
What was this?
So, this was a Netflix movie that came out in November called Cam. And I was like, because I was, you know, I'm the one who's in charge of like updating our Facebook and stuff. So I posted.
But someone missed something.
So I posted an article about Cam, like, the writers and directors are doing something new, and I was like, I wonder, like, I forgot, like, when did I review Cam? And then I looked back at our old episodes, and then I was like, holy shit, I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't.
How did I miss this out? Okay, so I mean, backtrack really quick, just because, you know, I needed to talk about this. November. Cam is about an ambitious cam girl who is plunged into an existential crisis when she learns that she's been locked out of her account.
Okay.
And replaced by an exact replica of herself on the stream. Yeah. So how freaky is that? You know, this cam girl making money, her only source of income. Suddenly she's locked out and she finds like this mystical creature has taken her form. More than just fraud, this virtual entity has somehow managed to copy not just her physical form, but nearly everything else about her life.
Yeah.
What happens when our avatars take a life of their own? That's the premise of this engrossing cyber thriller, written by former cam model herself, Isa Mazet. I hope I'm saying that right. Cam is kind of a mindfuck mystery that strips away the artificial salaciousness to tell a feminist story about the hidden perils of sex work, attention, and online identity. This is like Black Mirror for cam girls.
Interesting.
Yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for me.
Ooh, is it still on Netflix?
Dude, it's always it's a Netflix original.
No, because sometimes Netflix original, then yes.
It'll be on Netflix, okay. It won't be taken out.
Cool, I'm gonna watch it.
Speaking of going back in time, Netflix recently acquired a new show called The Carillon Frequency. Except The Carillon Frequency is not new. It's actually a 2017 web series from Argentina that was actually released on YouTube and Vimeo. I didn't catch it back then. But now that it's been bought over and exclusively available on Netflix, that's where I encountered it, because Netflix just it popped up. I was like, hey, this looks fun. So the series revolves around a nighttime radio program set in a small town deep inside Buenos Aires, in Argentina, of course, where a lot of macabre and creepy events occur. It's a hotbed of menacing supernatural activity, which could mean, witches, vampires, ghosts, werewolves, or even like
the usuals.
Ancient tentacle monsters also pop up. The most dangerous time to be roaming around is at night, which is why there is a local talk radio DJ who takes calls and keeps watch and offers advice and warnings to his freaked out listeners. So it's basically like an audio podcast, except in visual form. The Carillon Frequency kind of combines two classic horror film tropes, like Midnight Radio, I think, is a classic trope, and Strange Little Town. Each episode runs at under 10 minutes, so you can burn through all there's only 5 episodes. You can burn through all 5 episodes in under an hour. Yeah.
Wow.
50 minutes, I think, at most. You totally should, because I love the Stephen King vibe of it, and there's kind of quirky indie animation, which isn't impressive, but I mean, stylistically great lah. So Carillon Frequency is a 7 out of 10 for me. Okay. A slight but fun thing.
It's 7 out of 10 for me too.
Hey, I
haven't watched it yet.
Next up, another show that is coming back, that was big in 2016, the second season of the OA. So I'm gonna attempt to review this totally batshit show. So to get this out of the way, right? The OA is a take it or leave it show. Either you love it or you hate it. There's no room in between. Either you find its big existential ideas awe-inspiring and profound and life-changing, or you find them laughably silly. You laugh, you cry from laughing, or you simply stare blankly at the screen at some of the weirdest shit you've ever seen unfold. And you're asked to take this all very, very seriously. For better or worse, the OA never blinks. It is what it is. Its imagination is bane and a blessing. How do I talk about this, man? It renders the show inaccessible to certain audiences, while successfully distinguishing itself from any other series out there. Okay. So, bane and a blessing. So this season we follow our...
So if you're an OA fan, you will love what's happening. If you will love
the first season, you would still be shocked by how much crazier it gets in season 2.
Okay. But it's very inaccessible for new fans?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, you definitely have to watch season 1 first. Although it's a kind of a soft reboot because it takes place in an alternate dimension.
Okay.
So this season we follow the OA stands for Original Angel. So we follow our OA into a new dimension, and it leans into this alternate universe story wholeheartedly. That bit is good. I appreciate the bonkers imagination. It's just that the show still suffers from the same problems as season 1. To me, it's a problem. To others, it might be a flourish.
What's the problem?
It moves at a glacial pace. It's overlong, it's painfully slow, and it's frequently ludicrous. Like, so many ludicrous things happen, and it's done without a sense of humor. Like, like Doom Patrol and Legends of Tomorrow, they have like a wink kind of thing.
Yeah.
This one has no wink. This is like the most serious thing that's ever happened. No. So it's just so pretentious, and I'm not up for it. It feels like a dollar store version of The Leftovers, because for all of the OA's big ideas and super serious character studies,
there are other series that have done it
which is totally similar to The Leftovers. It lacks the craft and nuance of The Leftovers, or the sense of playfulness of a Legion or Legends of Tomorrow, for example. It's a 4 out of 10 for me. Okay. I fully understand why for other people it might be a 400 out of 10.
Still better than American Gods.
Yes. No, but like American Gods, everybody will find that sucks. Yeah. With the OA, there is an audience.
It's divisive lah.
Yeah, you either think it sucks or it's the greatest thing ever made in the history of fiction. Kind of one of those things lah. So keep in mind, this is my opinion. I know there are a lot of hardcore OA fans out there.
Don't go crazy.
Next up, I'm going to be reviewing Critters, which is on a streaming service called Shudder, which is a horror exclusive streaming service.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Shudder. It's only like $4.99. It's pretty cheap. So Critters is a reboot of, you remember the 80s franchise Critters? So nearly 30 years after the last installment in the franchise, that would be the 1992 direct-to-video Critters 4.
Yeah, there were 4 of them, by the way. Don't forget.
Yeah. The creatures are back for a new show called Critters: A New Binge, which makes sense, They're hungry. And you can binge the show.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a brand new Shudder original series. It's made out of 8 episodes. The very first Critters TV series actually runs shorter than even the shortest film in the franchise.
Wow.
Yes, because it's only, I think about 70 minutes. It will take 70 minutes in total.
For all episodes?
For all episodes. So it's a very, very short series. So trust me, it's a blessing in disguise, because Critters: A New Binge, right, is pretty bad.
Okay, I mean the movies weren't masterpieces,
No, but even compared to the movies, this is what I'm trying to say.
What?
It's actually a reboot that bears no storyline connections to the movies.
Okay.
The critters are returning to Earth on a mission to rescue on their own. It's yes, I know. So it's cheap, it's unfunny, and even compared to the original franchise, which was so bad it's good, right? This is just so bad it's bad.
Ayo,
because it lacks the charm and the wit and
of Critters 1.
The warmth of Critters.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can take cheesiness.
Yeah.
But not when it's done with so little self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even compared to the original Critters, this is a failure. It's a 1 out of 10.
No. Wow.
Yeah.
Worse than American Gods.
Yeah, it is.
Damn.
Far worse than American Gods.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, gonna be jumping in. I haven't talked about podcasts here for a long time, considering we are a podcast.
Yeah, so what are we talking about?
The last podcast I reviewed was Wolverine: The Long Night.
Yes.
Which was a really, really good podcast. And I do have to remind you guys that Wolverine: The Lost Trail, the sequel to The Long Night,
is it out already?
It will be out on Stitcher in a week.
Wait, is it Stitcher Premium or Stitcher
Premium? But if you wait a few months, it'll be out on iTunes and stuff for free lah. So anyways, I'll be talking about a podcast called The Feast. Why am I talking about a food podcast?
Yeah, why?
Because this acclaimed food podcast, The Feast, begins its 3rd season by discussing the evolution of Star Trek's treatment of food. From like the colorful nutrient cubes at the start of the original series to Picard's replicator tea to the cultural implications of Vulcan vegetarianism, the podcast attempts to explain how Star Trek has always used gastronomy to both build a compelling world and to answer pressing questions about society and consumption.
And the culture.
Culture, consumption, and how different cultures look at each other based on what they eat. This is especially important to look at in a quote-unquote utopian society where scarcity, money, and hunger is non-existent. So what does it say about that society? So from veganism to the social value of alcohol across cultures, through the dissipation of factory farming because of the synthesizers, this podcast is a super nerdy listen.
But it sounds interesting though.
It's a very fascinating podcast. It's called The Feast. The title of this particular episode is, as Picard says it, Tea, Earl Grey, Hot. Tales from a Star Trek Speakeasy.
So that means this is this episode is on Star Trek lah.
Yes, it's a general food podcast. Mostly about real world.
So this is when they're talking about sci-fi lah.
Yes. So they got a couple of Star Trek podcasters on as guests lah.
Nice.
And I explain it.
Okay.
It's an 8 out of 10 for me. It's a 1 hour listen, really fun. If you're a Star Trek fan, like most of us are, you definitely enjoyed it. Or even if you're just like anthropological kind of nerd,
Yeah, you kind of appreciate this whole conversation lah.
Correct.
So have you watched Star Trek Discovery yet?
No, but we will be reviewing it next month.
Hurry up and watch.
Okay. Next up, we'll be handing it over to Isa.
Isa!
Because we are back for another quarterly segment that we like to call Isa's Anime Corner. So we've already talked about Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. That's out of the way. That was, like My Hero Academia, a special kind of anime, deserves its own section. What other animes do you have to recommend to us, Isa?
I think this time round is not so much of a recommendation as it is kind of like a reminder and a review, right?
Yeah.
So this particular season of anime that we've been having, much like Mob Psycho 2, we have had the return of a couple of season 2s as well, right? Of which the standouts, both in good and bad ways. The first one I'm going to talk about is Sword Art Online 3, right? So we've got season 3, and Sword Art Online, yeah. So like the first season, which I think Hadi you watched with me, right? Was really good in the fact that it was kind of one of the first new game-based genre animes, right? And that kind of sparked off an entire slew of that happening. Is nothing new genre-wise to anime, at least, because you had hack slash and all of that in the past. But I think Sword Art Online kind of like reignited that particular genre in anime. I felt like they kind of phoned it home for season 2 with the Gun Gale Online. And the whole like fairy arc that they had there. But season 3 has been very, very interesting in that they've started to ask a lot of very deep questions in the subtext of the series at the moment. So just for a brief background, Kirito, our dearly overpowered protagonist, is now in a coma, and in order to rehabilitate his higher brain functions, right, they've basically put him in another game, or so to say, or another virtual world in which he has to he finds himself in and is being challenged by. What's interesting is that this entire world is populated by AI. And so what they've done is they found a way to copy a person's soul into a digital format. So they call this technology Fluxlight, right? So basically they scan like these obviously it's pseudoscience, but they scan these parts of your brain that emit a certain wavelength of light, right? And that's what they consider the soul of the person. So he's currently stuck in a virtual world. The anime is still currently ongoing and will be finishing, or will be wrapping up soon. He's stuck in a world that is inhabited by these floodlights, right? These copies of souls of real people who reproduce to create their more AI, right? So it is a fascinating exploration into questions like, what is a soul? If you do not have a physical body, do you exist? If you exist in a program, do you exist? What happens when these AI souls get corrupted? is it possible for them to get corrupted? Is it part of their programming? So there are a lot of very, very interesting, almost Black Mirror-like implications for a story that plays out in what is essentially a game-like virtual fantasy world, right? And I don't think we've actually seen anything like that so far. And for, of course, fans of that, you will also know that this is a precursor to what will eventually become Excel World, right? Because of same author and all of that. So highly recommend it. So far it's been great. I think like it's enjoyable, but at the same time there's a lot to chew on kind of like a moral philosophical level. It's a good like 7.5 out of 10 for me. The other one which has season 2 right now is Kakiguri, which is your gambling addict. If you are keen, you can check that out. Season 1 is on Netflix at the moment. Season 2 has been interesting, and I've always been fascinated with this particular series just because of the way the approach in which they approach gambling as sort of a game-based system, right? And the kind of games that they come up with requires a great deal of thought and understanding of game theory in order to make the stories work. And that played out very well in season 1. However, in season 2, they needed something more to kind of raise the stakes, and it's gotten ridiculous. So much so to the point, right, that it's very difficult to kind of like follow on with what they're trying to achieve, right? And just all in all, just to keep it short, Kakiguri season 2 does have a lot of the fantastic things from season 1, but because they need to continually raise the stakes in almost like a shonen level, power level kind of thing, right? It's gotten a little bit ridiculous, and it's only a 5 out of 10 for me.
Oh, okay.
I remember a couple of months ago, at the beginning of this anime season, I was talking about The Promised Neverland, and I just want to like shout it out as a reminder because it went from a 3-episode curiosity to a phenomenally good anime. Like so much so to the point where I'm really, really blown away by the way the storytelling has been done, by the way that they've captured the emotions of the kids that are involved with this. Just like a recap, right? So it's about these kids who are in an orphanage and they discover a very deep, dark, and horrifying secret about their hitherto.
No, that's Leaving Neverland.
Yeah. well, I mean, there's some parallels that you could possibly draw from there. But essentially discovering a horrifying secret that changes the entirety of their understanding of their hitherto very idyllic life, right? It's wrapping up real soon. I think we've just got 1 or 2 more episodes left. Every episode, the last 5 episodes have been cliffhangers back to back. The twists and turns have been crazy. I really can't wait to see how they end this, and hopefully it's with a bang. Right?
How to rate it?
Yeah. Easily it's an 8.5. Right.
Where can you find this? Is it Crunchyroll?
Yes, you can find it on Crunchyroll at the moment. Rumors are that Netflix is going to pick it up. So if you don't mind waiting a little while and you only have access to Netflix, please go check that out when it does come on, probably when the next season starts as well. Right? And the last and final one for fans of Danmachi or Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls at a Dungeon? The new movie is coming out real soon.
Yeah, I think it's coming out
next week.
Next week, yeah.
Next week, yeah. So, Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Arrow of Orion comes out in Singapore next week. Yeah. I'm really excited about this. Danmachi, the short form of the name, is one of my favorite animes. Also a game-based world with the whole fantasy idea going on with that, being reborn into that world. If you're keen to check out the series, it's currently on Netflix, both the original Danmachi series as well as its offshoot called Sword Oratoria, where you follow a different protagonist through the same timeline again, which I thought was very smart when it came out. Please go check that out. It's on Netflix right now. In the meantime, we will probably be doing a review of Stars of Orion that's coming out real soon. And I hope you guys get to catch that, and we'll see what you guys think as well.
Nice. And to wrap up the episode, as usual, I'll be doing some book and comic book recommendations, some literature recommendations.
Your pull list.
The pull list. The first one I'm going to be talking about is a book called Black Leopard, Red Wolf.
This is the African book?
Yes. This is by a writer named Marlon James, who actually won a Man Booker Prize in 2014 for a book called A Brief History of Seven Killings. That was a kaleidoscopic tale of like politics, gangs, and drugs and reggae in Jamaica, actually. So when he announced that he was gonna follow up with a fantasy novel, the literary community was aghast.
Really?
You know the stuffy, serious literature pricks. Like,
yeah, I know.
What are you doing? Doing like kiddie stuff, like fantasy. But he has proven himself to be a great writer in any genre. So this one, Black Leopard Red Wolf, easily one of the best books I've read this year, although it is early. Has kind of been catchily labeled by the writer himself as the African Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Of course, it is so much more than that, lah. So if you've read his previous work, you'll be familiar with his incredibly lush prose. He uses that vivid and engrossing writing style to paint the wonders of little-known African folklore. Everyone knows what fairies and dwarfs and elves are, but creatures and mythologies he draws upon here might be unfamiliar to readers such as myself, who are more inclined towards Western fantasy. But James uses the rich heritage of African myths and tales to create a heartbreaking new world, and a breathtaking new world also. It develops rewarding characters, all while subverting genre conventions at every turn. Describing the plot is almost impossible because, as all fantasy novels are, it's very dense and stuffed with dozens of intertwining side stories. Plus, the major thing that is making it difficult for me to summarize it is because its POV character is an unreliable narrator. So just take my word for it lah. Black Leopard Red Wolf is a triumph of imagination and will certainly be the next great fantasy franchise. This is only the first installment of what James calls the Dark Star trilogy, so there's more to come.
So 2 more books lah.
2 more books, plus Michael B. Jordan has already optioned the movie rights for this book, so it will be made into a movie.
Oh.
And finally,
wait, do you think that it will be better as a series or a movie?
I think it'll be better as a series.
Okay.
For sure. But if you want to go the movie route, I mean, I trust Michael B. Jordan, so why not? It's a 9 out of 10 for me.
If he gets Ryan Coogler on board.
Why not, right? The Black Panther team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, last thing I'll talk about before we wrap up is a beautiful little story called Death Wins a Goldfish.
Yeah.
So Death Wins a Goldfish follows a grim reaper forced to clear his vacation days by the Human Resources Department.
Okay.
So Death been overworked. There's a bunch of leave stored up.
It feels very Terry Pratchett.
Forced to go on leave, yeah, pretty much. So it is written by a guy called Brian Rea, and his humorous and heartfelt graphic novel is a sneak peek into Death's journal entries while on sabbatical, documenting the mundane joys of his holidays. This Grim Reaper is intent on using his time off to grow as a person, so he travels the world, enrolls in college, attends festivals, and even gives dating apps a try. What he finds ranges from the utterly disappointing to some transcendentally joyous things, but it is always a testament to discovering new things and encountering new people and broadening your horizons. Life is more than work, It's all a lovely reminder to the overstressed and overworked to go out and live your life once in a while. Everyone deserves a break, even death.
Wow, this is interesting.
It's very cute. It's kind of a whimsical tale, but has a nice message behind it, lah.
Okay.
Especially we come from we're in Asian society that values work over all others.
I mean, from what you're explaining about the book, it really reminds me of Terry Pratchett's Reaper Man, Terry Pratchett's Hogfather and Mort, where death is also a protagonist.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I'll definitely try to catch that.
So this this kind of elliptical journal entry story about death, like you mentioned, an earnest appeal to a fundamental human question: how should one live? As death finds out, the only way to live is to simply go out there and do it. There's no talking about it. Just do something.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I mean, great little graphic novel. It's an 8 out of 10. You can find
it's a
it
graphic novel.
Graphic novel. You can find it at Kinokuniya.
Okay.
Or GNB Comics, I'm sure, has it as well. Or if you are a Kindle person, it's available on Amazon and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh boy, next month is gonna be a big one.
Yeah.
I'm already exhausted looking through this list. So let's run through some of the things that we're going to be talking about next month. Avengers Endgame,
the biggest one,
the big one, the granddaddy. Shazam, the original Captain Marvel. The new Hellboy. Ultraman, new series on Netflix. The second season of Sabrina.
That should be
Adventures
fun.
of
that's fast, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the second half of the first season.
Oh,
They
yeah.
broke it
Okay,
into two.
yeah.
Star Trek Discovery, which Hadi and Isa will talk about.
You also.
I will respond.
You will like this season, trust me.
Great.
It's become very Star Trek-y.
Interesting.
Yeah.
For quick hits, there are a lot of horror movies actually coming out in April. There is the new Stephen King, Pet Sematary.
I'll be watching that review.
It is 30 years since the last Pet Sematary, so it's about time, you know.
Yeah.
We have The Hole in the Ground, which is an Irish indie horror about a boy who disappears into a hole in the ground and comes back different. So another creepy kid one.
Oh, I like that.
There is The Curse of La Llorona. There is Laika's new stop motion animation picture called Missing Link. Tim Burton's return in Dumbo, which looks immensely sad. There is the second season of The Tick. There is the really cute Rilakkuma and Kaoru, which is, you know, based on the Sand X plush toys.
Yeah.
There is Brie Larson's directorial debut, The Unicorn Store,
I
which
heard about
also
this also.
stars Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Good time to release it. Very smart by Netflix, considering the movie was actually out in 2017.
Oh, wow.
So they were waiting for Captain Marvel.
And to capitalize on that.
Yeah, smart.
Clever.
Smart, alright. Those are just the things that are finishing next month. Keep in mind, there are other things like Game of Thrones that is premiering next month. That is What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, damn. Taika Waititi.
If you're not watching right now, I mean, Doom Patrol is still killing it right now. You know?
Doom Patrol.
Yeah, the Jordan Peele's The Twilight Zone, no breaks for Jordan Peele. It's
I haven't
premiering
watched
in a
it.
week.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out yet.
Not out yet.
Okay.
It's premiering in a
No
week.
wonder I
you
haven't
know.
watched that.
Cloak and Dagger is out next month also.
Season 2.
Season 2. Good
Damn.
Omens. And speaking
Yes,
of your
finally.
Terror Pratchett, yeah. So much good things, you know.
Yeah, man.
But obviously the two big things for the next couple of months: Avengers
Yeah.
Endgame and A Song of Ice and Fire. Nope, we're not talking about Todoroki. We're talking
Nope.
about Game of Thrones.
Not
so
bad. That's a good My Academia joke.
I know,
Yeah.
but it very specific audience for that.
Very,
joke, very
yeah.
small audience.
Yeah.
Only you guys lah, basically. And you also in America and Thailand and Vietnam. Till next time, this has been Hidzir.
I'm Hadi.
I'm Isa.
We'll catch you next month. Wish us luck as we watch all these amazing things.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.